And group one is on. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday school. We are finishing up Acts in our Explore the Bible study series for Sunday school this quarter. And so we're on the last one, session. I don't know what session number. It's the last session. And we're in Acts 27. And there's a really good question that the Bible study author has that I liked. Where's it at? Because when Paul is ministering to these soldiers, to the Romans, and then also to the prisoners, yeah, there it is. The Bible study author asked, what makes it difficult to trust God in every situation? And this is a really, really good illustration and example of why it's really difficult because, we are sometimes fearful of the unknown. And what makes us fearful of the unknown is that it's unknown. So B, we don't have that experience, or two. So one, we fear the unknown, but two, because we don't know what's going on, it's the experience that allows us to be able to be trusting of God. And see, if we have that experience, if we actually put our trust in Him and continue to put Him first in every encounter that we have, that includes starting the day, getting up, when we're going out and just doing work, right? We're clocking in at our job, or we're volunteering, or maybe even as a family member, right? You're responsible for some tasks. Whenever you start out those tasks, you recognize that God is primary, and He's allowed you to do that. He's put you in that place. He's protected you to be able to be there, right? And He's surrounded you with the people that He's surrounded you with. And in all of that, He's been able to provide for you. And if we don't recognize, right, if we're not seeking that out, right, it's hard to trust. It's hard to build that foundation of believing, and that's what it means to believe. And so right here, Paul in his journey, right, he's already went through a lot, and that's what the Bible study authors wants to remember, because when it comes time to hear, when it comes time to actually make it to Rome, there was a lot of uh, what do you call it? Um, Things that happened. There's a fancy word for that. There's a lot of we like to say trials and tribulations, but there's a lot of stuff going on in his life that led up to the point where he was going to actually fulfill what God had ordained, and we see that here. We're going to read a couple of passages in here that the whole study focuses on, but then we'll expound upon it. But Acts 27, and again, he's left on a ship. They've taken him. They have some other prisoners. It says, when a gentle south wind sprang up, they thought they had achieved their purpose. They weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. But not long after, a fierce wind called the nor'easter rushed down from the island. Since the ship was caught and was unable to head into the wind, we gave way to it and were driven along. After running under the shelter of a little island called Calda, we were barely able to get control of the skiff. And they're talking about how what Paul had explained to them was going to happen, because we back up a couple verses. Paul was telling us, men, I can see that this voyage is headed toward damage and heavy loss, not only of the cargo and the ship, but also of our lives. So he was trying to give advice and trying to show what was going to happen. And he had remained calm about it, and that's one of the things that the Bible study author wants us to recognize, is that because he's had that experience, because he's believed and trusted God with his life, he had peace in what he was doing. He had peace in what he was going to be told. In fact, there was an angel that came and visited him, and he goes and further on, where is it at? For this night, an angel of the God I belong to and serve stood by me and said, "Don't be afraid, Paul. You must stand before Caesar. And look, God has graciously given you all those who are sailing with you. Therefore, take courage, men." And he's explaining to the crew. He said, "Therefore, take courage, men, because I believe God that it will be just the way it was told to me." And then he explains what needs to happen, because what we're going to read here, they're panicking. And like I said, first, one, we fear the unknown. So one of the things that I always it's a good and bad way of I guess sharing and testifying, right? Not about God and Christ, even though he's the one that set it up. But when people are scared of doing something, and when they're scared of life ending, right? And they're genuinely afraid because they don't know what's going to happen to them, right? We as believers we shouldn't have that same fear. Yes, we don't know what death is like, but we know that it's not the end, right? And so we have something to look forward to. And when you have something to look forward to, it gives you purpose. It gives you maybe motivation, or maybe some, what do you call it? Effort to be able to continue on, right? Strength. You could say wisdom and intelligence, but it renews your maybe stamina, right? It gives you a little bit of endurance, gives you a little bit more extra in that tank to be able to move on, right? If we take a sports event, it's the simplest illustration of what we're talking about, right? In football, there's 4 quarters, and basketball and Major League Baseball. And this is really true in I think it was the World Series here recently. You guys watch the World Series? Hold me accountable here. I think one of the games went into extra innings, and so let's see. I think one of them went into extra innings, and the way it ended was it was a home run that kind of sealed the deal, right? And it gave them a little bit of extra oomph in those next couple games, because that that batter continued to do that, right? He didn't know what it was like to be able to accomplish that feat, and a lot of major league players probably seek something like that, right? To be able to give their team a little bit more, a little bit extra, right? When football players, the quarter's winding down, and the fourth quarter ends, right? Same way with basketball. If they're tied, it gives them a little bit extra. It's like, hey, we have extra time. We're not going to be given that extra time, but what God has said is that there's something else afterwards. See, right? Whenever we're in a career or something like that, and we see retirement coming up, we might not think that, hey, there's too much more of life because we've worked, we've raised our family, and all that type of stuff. But that's not what God says. Is there's something more to look after look after too, right? And that's what Paul has been experiencing and being able to testify his whole life about, is that God will take care of you. God will strengthen you. God will see you through those tough times, because he was a living example of it. And these guys, when they were experiencing the storm out in the middle of the sea, right? They didn't know anything about it, and then all of a sudden it comes up. they see that the way to be able to continue on is to trust in God. Not only that, but to listen to the ones who were telling them about God. And that's where we pick up there in verse 30. We're going to read verse 30, even though that's not the focus right here. But it says, some sailors tried to escape from the ship. They had let down the skiff into the sea, pretending that they were going to put out anchors from the bow, from the bow. Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, unless these men stay in the ship, you cannot be saved. Then the soldiers cut the ropes holding the skiff and let it drop anyway. When it was about daylight, Paul urged them all to take food, saying, today is the 14th day that you have been waiting and going without food, having eaten nothing. Therefore, I urge you to take some food, for this has to do with your survival, since none of you will lose a hair from your head. And that's an important phrase that was used in that day. Not a hair from your head will be harmed. After he said these things and had taken some bread, he gave thanks to God in the presence of all of them, and when he broke it, he began to eat. They all became encouraged and took food themselves. In all, there were 276 of us on the ship. When they had eaten enough, they began to lighten the ship by throwing the grain overboard into the sea. You see, one of the things that he was trying to show was that this is all part of God's plan, and God was seeing them through this, and yet he provided. And the only way we're able to encourage others like that, and we've been saying this for the past several weeks, right? The only way we're going to be able to do that is to be able to know ourselves, right? To be, then not know ourselves, but to actually have that knowledge within ourselves. And where do we get that knowledge? Where do we get that wisdom? Doing Bible study, reading our Bible, actually experiencing what God is doing for us, right? Life events, they help us be able to encourage those other ones. Paul wouldn't be in this spot and being able to be encouraging to all those that are fearing the worst, right? They're fearing that their lives are gonna end at some point. But Paul was trying to show them, was trying to minister to them, not only spiritually, that they should believe in something, that not, if they didn't believe, this is quite unique in this illustration. He said, if you don't believe that you're going to survive, at least believe that you have been taken care of, and that trust me that you're going to eat and you're going to be able to move on. And it's because he had trusted God, right? He had all these experiences, all these things happen to him, but God's seen him through it every single time. And he was encouraging those because he had seen where God had provided. And not only that, right? If they didn't believe that they were going to live and all this type of stuff, maybe believe in God that they were going to have another chance, right? Because that's what he was ministering to them to. Because not only that, all he experienced, but he also had a visitor, an angel had helped come down and encourage not only him, but to pass the message on to the rest of the prisoners and to the rest of the crew, that nothing was going to be, it wasn't as dire as they thought it was going to be. And then, like a lot of times, especially us natives, right? Whenever we have a big event and we're ministering, it's always good to eat. Not only that, they needed to, because to be able to carry on and survive, right? They had forgotten all about eating, taking care of themselves, and because they thought things had come to the end, right? But God had provided for them to be able to sustain themselves, and they needed it because what their journey next was. And again, God wouldn't, or Paul wouldn't be able to explain this except that he's experienced it himself. And so he took the opportunity to eat. He took the opportunity to restore himself and then move on from there. He didn't stay there. That's an important part. So we fear the unknown because we don't know it, right? We don't have that experience. And once we become when we get into that situation and we are experiencing those things and we're believing in God, we don't just sit there. And that's one of the things that is wrapped up in this lesson here in this illustration is, yeah, they crashed. They were what's that called? Shipwrecked. What's the term? The not the because it's not in here, but they ran aground. They not beached. They're not whales. But there's a term for it when they get they hit a sandbar and then it broke apart. Their ship literally was destroyed. But Paul had told them that. He said there's going to be damage way in the outset. He said there's going to be damage. Our lives are going to be at risk, and you're going to lose your ship. You're gonna lose the way we're making this journey. He said, but God is going to take care of us. And that's one of the aspects that we have to remember, is that we can't get caught up in that moment. And yeah, we've survived and we were able to overcome those things, but we don't just stay there, because he has a purpose. That angel delivered the purpose for Paul, but we also have to recognize that God has a purpose for each and every one of us. If he's going to use us, if he's going to protect us and keep us, and then he's not just allowing us to be able to stay in one spot. He's given us an experience. He's given us testimony, and we need to go out and share that. And one of the message to Paul was, you're going to stand before Caesar. So your life isn't going to end here in this event, and those around you aren't going to be harmed as well. So, but you have a purpose, and you're gonna complete that journey. And that might have been easy for Paul to understand, but for him to explain it to other people, how are we going to survive? How are you going to make it? How are you going to actually get there and accomplish this? And that's one of the things that those around him, right? Because they didn't know and they didn't have that experience, but now they've experienced it all. They have to trust and believe in God and move forward. They have to actually continue on and fulfill and serve God the best way they know how. And so we see it moving on through there. It talks about the hospitality they were able to enjoy after all of that. There at the end, it says verse 42, it says the soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners so that no one could swim away and escape. But the centurion kept them from carrying out their plan because he wanted to save Paul. So he ordered those who could swim to jump aboard first and get to land. The rest were to follow, some on planks and some on debris from the ship. In this way, everyone safely reached the shore. Let's see. And then, how did God protect the passengers even when the sailor's best efforts did not work out as planned? They could they could stay on board or risk being killed by soldiers or going down with the ship, or they could jump into the sea where the waves were strong enough to tear a boat apart. But they all survived because God is trustworthy and faithful to the promises he makes. Again, he was letting them know, right, that, he let them know way ahead of time that they were going to be okay, but they had to face their fears, right? We fear the unknown. They didn't know what it was like to swim in a sea that was crazy or right. It was a big storm. We know what nor'easters are because we have them on the eastern seaboard. They come literally out of nowhere. There's not really any prediction of them. They can kind of see when the system sets up, but then all of a sudden there's a storm out there on the coast, and that's where it likes to ride right there along the coast. We've had a couple of them in Jersey and New York and all the Eastern Seaboard there, and they got really affected by it. What was it, like 2014 or something like that? 2016. There was a um, maybe it was 17 as well. But Hurricane Sandy, right? All those storms right there. They just right up along the coast, and you live on the coast, right? We seen where Florida was had a lot of damage from the hurricanes this past season. Still in the hurricane season, but past storms. Um, but they had to trust that what Paul was saying was true. And it wasn't that Paul was saying it to them. And that's one of the things that Paul was trying to emphasize. It wasn't him that was going to protect them. It wasn't him that was doing any of this. It was God. And for them to recognize that, he had to explain that to them. It was God that saved you and was going to be able to protect you. So once ashore, we learned that the island was called Malta. The local people showed us extraordinary kindness, for they lit a fire and took us all in since it was raining and cold. It explains when what was happening right there, and then throughout the rest of the book, it shows where Paul ended his journey. Right, he was able to make it to Rome after being able to minister to the people that was taking care of them. They and after their time there, they sent them off. Sent them off well. They were able to take care of them because they were ministering to them. They were able to take care of them when they had to go back, when they had to continue on to their journey. Their journey wasn't over. They had. That's what the angel was saying, was that he had to go and stand he had to go and stand before Caesar to be able to complete everything that he was destined to do. And well, we know what happened to Paul. He got thrown in jail, and then I probably didn't face too much more persecution, but he was kind of hidden away, and then we see where he was able to complete his ministry. At the end, it says, then he stayed 2 whole years in his own rented house, and he welcomed all those who visited him, proclaiming the kingdom of God and teaching the things concerning the Lord Jesus Christ with full boldness and without hindrance. And he was able to do that because at the very, very foundation, right, he believed when Jesus appeared to him, when God appeared to him and said, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Why are you persecuting my people? He blinded him. He made him turn completely around. He changed his whole life, right? And once he did that, he was able to minister to all those because he had that experience. That was one of the key factors in his life. Everybody knew who he was. Everybody knew who this guy was, and for them to see him living such a changed life, it had an effect on everybody that he met in his ministry, and that's why he was brought before the the leadership, was because he was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ when the Jews believed another way, right? They had rejected Jesus initially, and they didn't know that he was the prophet, he was the Messiah that was sent by God to be able to pay for everybody's sin debt. And because of that, Paul was able to go out and minister much more and grow the church and be able to make an impact in the world. Again, because of his changed life, he feared what might happen to him if he was ever able to believe in God and testify for him. But he had that experience because he put his trust and faith in God, and he took care of him. Even seen him through all this stuff, right? Even broke his chains in prison. All these things that we see about him, he was able to complete because he put his faith and trust in God. And because of that, right? And because he kept moving on and continuing his journey, he was able to have a good ministry and be able to testify about everything that God does for us. And so that wraps up everything that we wanted to do with Acts. We're going to hopefully get another quarterly and be able to take it up. I don't know which one it is. It doesn't say here, but um, we, for those of you online, right, we want you to join us every Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. That's when Sunday school starts. We have discussion. We have a Bible study. We have Sunday school for kids. I know we're getting ready to move into the holiday season, and we might miss some certain things when we're taking care of special activities. Even in the Bible study, it makes room for certain holidays, holiday weekends, and whatnot. But we encourage you to come and join us. And if you can't, thank you for tuning in online. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up Sunday school. Any questions or comments from anybody here? No? Okay. Brother Ken, would you dismiss us from Sunday school with a word of prayer?